Welcome to my channel, everyone. Today we're going to watch Friday the 13th, Part 6 from 1986. Here we go. Okay, Tommy is back, but this time he's a different actor, and he wants to make sure Jason is really dead. Tommy returns to Crystal Lake, now renamed Forest Green, and heads to the cemetery with a buddy who tags along. They bring shovels and the hockey mask, not sure what for. Tommy digs up the grave, pops open the coffin, and there he is, our serial killer chilling in the middle of a worm fest. Furious, Tommy grabs a metal rod from the cemetery gate and stabs it right into Jason's chest. Jason gets a Frankenstein revival.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Tommy pulls the rod out, probably because he's an idiot, and Jason wakes up reaching for Tommy, who slips away just in time. He douses him with gasoline, but he can't light the matches because of the rain, so his friend tries to help but pays a steep price for it. Tommy flees in the truck, and Jason puts the mask on, coming back as a total ass kicker. Tommy, all worked up, heads to the sheriff's department. He tells the sheriff what happened, but the guy doesn't believe him. On top of that, the sheriff recognizes him and knows his backstory. Tommy gets even more rattled and tries to grab a shotgun from the locker, so the sheriff locks him up. Meanwhile, a couple is driving their yellow Volkswagen Beetle through the middle of the woods when they run right into Jason. They try to scare him off by driving the car at him, but Jason doesn't budge. The guy grabs his revolver, gets out of the car, and threatens Jason to move, but Jason springs into action. Jason now goes after her, and she offers him some money to leave her alone. Yep, don't leave home without it. Back at the sheriff's department, we meet Megan, the sheriff's daughter, and some of her friends, the new counselors for the kids' camp. Tommy warns them about Jason and tells the sheriff that no matter what they call the place, Jason doesn't care because it's still Crystal Lake to him. At the cemetery, the caretaker covers Jason's tomb again to avoid taking responsibility for it being robbed. At the camp, now renamed Camp Forest Green, the counselors are getting everything ready for the kids' arrival. Megan tries to spook her friends with the legend of Jason coming back to avenge his mother's death until the kids show up.
I think I'd rather deal with old Jason.
She's not wrong. In the woods, Jason stumbles across a corporate paintball game. While this woman removes the paintball bands from these guys she eliminated, another dude, pissed off about losing, hacks his way through the bushes with a machete. And now, Jason has a new toy. Then he suddenly jumps out at these three and bam, head's gone. And this guy who saw it all takes off running like crazy with Jason walking after him. Meanwhile, the sheriff is escorting Tommy out of Forest Green's limits to get rid of him once and for all. But Tommy suddenly speeds up and takes a different road, kicking off a chase. Tommy heads into the cemetery, followed by the sheriff and his deputy who chase him down and catch him. Tommy wants to prove to them that Jason isn't in his grave and that he's alive. But since the grave's been covered up, the sheriff takes Tommy out of Forest Green and leaves him there, warning him never to come back. At night, the caretaker wanders around drunk, finishing off his flask of booze before tossing it, expecting to hear it hit the ground. When that doesn't happen, he turns around to look, and a couple nearby, having a nighttime picnic, hears the old man scream. The guy goes to check it out and finds Jason macheteing the old dude. Freaked out by the sight, he runs. Jason goes after him. He grabs his girl and tells her they've got to get the hell out of there. They hop on the motorcycle, but meet Skewer. Meanwhile, a couple of counselors are having a good time inside this RV, but Jason, being a total buzzkill, cuts the power. They check it out but don't see anything weird. Then they drive toward the camp, but Jason is already up there, trapped. The guy's clueless driving with rock cranked up loud. She tries to shake Jason off, but cake pan mold. Next, Jason whips out a knife and no more rock. Heavy metal, baby. Now, with the driver dead, the RV flips and lands on its side, and Jason walks out of there alive and kicking. Badass. The sheriff gets a call from his deputy about some bodies found dead in Jason's way, so he figures Tommy off them to sell his story and goes after him. Meanwhile, Tommy buys some books on supernatural stuff to figure out how to finish off Jason. Don't ask me how he managed to read those books in 5 minutes. Anyway, Tommy calls the sheriff, but Megan answers she's in on the whole deal and warns Tommy that her father's looking for him, and she offers to help him. What? You met him just 5 seconds ago and you're still gonna help him? The police find the bodies and more keep popping up, convincing the sheriff more and more of how dangerous Tommy is. Jason rolls into the camp and pulls his favorite move, cutting the power. This girl hears something outside the cabin and goes to the window, but Jason shows up and yanks her out. Bye-bye, head. Megan picks up Tommy, and they both run into a roadblock, so they bolt from there. The sheriff's put on alert. Megan and Tommy keep fleeing from the police. They head to the camp, but run into another roadblock. This time, it's Megan's dad. At the police department, the sheriff is notified by a phone call about 2 more bodies found, so he asks his deputy to keep an eye on Tommy and Megan while he's out. At the camp, this scared little girl finds Jason's machete lying around. This counselor tells her it's just a prank by the other counselors and walks her back to her bed. Already nervous about not finding her friend, she notices the phone line is dead. She sees blood on the floor. The door swings open from the wind, so she goes to close it. And boom! Red shower time! Tommy is in his cell. Megan asks him to do something to distract the sheriff's deputy. They both stage a scene and it works. The deputy gets distracted by Tommy, and Megan takes the opportunity to grab his gun, forcing him to free Tommy. They lock the deputy in the cell and both leave. Megan asks Tommy about the stuff he's got in a bag, and Tommy goes, taking him back to Crystal Lake is the only way to kill Jason. Why? I don't know. At the camp, we see Jason stepping into the kid's bunk. He walks between them until he reaches her bed. She's not asleep and spots him. Her whimpers of fear catch Jason's attention, and now he's staring right at her. But the sound of a patrol car outside pulls his focus away, and Jason takes off. Outside, the sheriff and a couple of cops show up to check out the area. Then he steps into one of the cabins to find this. One of the cops checks the lake dock but doesn't find anything, until he spots him. The sheriff now steps into one of the bunks where the kids are sleeping, and he's horrified to see one of the beds is empty. Later, we see this cop poking around near some bushes when the little girl who witnessed Jason shows up and warns him about the scary man. And then, the scary man appears. She takes off running and the cop shoots at him. Man, I wish I could crack nuts that easily. The sheriff grabs his shotgun, then runs into the girl and the other kids outside the bunk. He takes them to another bunk and tells them to hide under the beds and wait there. Shotgun in hand, he steps out and comes across the body of one of the cops. Oh yeah, and the killer too. Shotgun blast 1, shotgun blast 2, shotgun blast 3. Man, I'd be miles away after that first blast. He pulls out his revolver and fires. What, are you crazy? Yeah, sure. Now you decide to run. Megan and Tommy arrive at the camp. She finds the blood-soaked cabin. Then she comes across the kids. Tommy heads to the dock and finds one of the dead cops, drops his bag in a boat and starts looking for a heavy rock. Megan calms the kids down and steps out to look for her dad.
What do you think?
I think we're dead meat.
Then she finds the missing head of one of the counselors.
So, what were you gonna be when you grew up?
Ha! I love these kids. Jason gets drawn in by Megan's screams, so the sheriff jumps him from behind and knocks him to the ground, hitting him with a stick and then a rock. Well, if 3 shotgun blasts to the body and a bullet to the head didn't do the trick.
Holy shit.
Meanwhile, they load the heavy rock into the boat. Tommy rigs up a sort of anchor with the rock, a chain, and a padlock, making a loop with the other end of the chain. Tommy tells Megan to go back to the kids, but she gets intercepted by Jason. Seeing this, Tommy yells at Jason to get his attention. It works. Jason leaves Megan alone. Tommy keeps taunting him as Jason walks into the lake. Slowly, he heads toward Tommy, who's waiting with the chain in his hands. Jason fully submerges, and Tommy loses sight of him. Then, he splashes gasoline on the water's surface around the boat and tosses a lit match. Tommy waits. Jason suddenly bursts out lunging at Tommy. The weight of the rock and Jason splits the boat's wood, and it starts to sink. Tommy manages to loop the chain around Jason's neck, but a final attack from Jason breaks the boat in two, and both of them sink. The weight of the rock anchors Jason to the bottom of the lake, but he manages to grab Tommy and strangles him with little resistance. Tommy's body floats to the surface. Megan, seeing this, jumps into the lake to pull him out, but Jason grabs her leg. She then tries to start the boat's motor while fighting not to be dragged down. Just then, the motor roars to life, and Megan turns the propeller blades toward Jason, slicing his neck until he stops moving. Megan grabs Tommy and pulls him out of there. On the shore, she performs CPR on Tommy. He spits out water and comes to. Tommy's alive.
It's finally over.
Yeah, it's finally over. And now, we see a daytime shot of Crystal Lake. Peaceful. Relaxing. Then, a second shot shows our masked killer resting at the bottom of the lake. But, for how long? And with Jason parodying the intros of James Bond movies, we close this chapter. And don't ask me how Jason went from this dried up, shriveled mess to this jack dude just by getting hit by lightning. Anyway, Jason racks up 18 victims in this chapter. Well, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and
Bye, my friends.